Before Manchester became the world's first industrial city, before its skyline filled with factory chimneys and its name became synonymous with cotton, labor movements, and modern urban life, there was the year 1750. This was a moment when Manchester still looked like a modest market town, but it already carried within it the forces that would soon reshape Britain and the world. To understand Manchester in 1750 is to stand on the quiet edge of a revolution that had not yet fully announced itself, but was already rumbling beneath the surface of everyday life. In 1750, Manchester wasn't yet a city in the modern sense. It wasn't even officially a city at all. It was a rapidly growing town in Lancashire with a population of around 20,000 people. Now, that number might seem small to us today, but it represented dramatic growth compared to earlier centuries. And this growth was no accident. Manchester's location was key. It was surrounded by fast-flowing rivers. It had a damp climate perfect for textiles, and it had great access to regional trade routes. This combination made it especially well-suited for textile production, particularly wool and, increasingly, cotton. While the large, steam-powered factories we associate with the Industrial Revolution were still decades away, the economic DNA of industrialization was already firmly embedded in the town's daily rhythms. Imagine walking through the streets of Manchester back then. They were narrow, irregular, and often muddy, lined with timber-framed houses, small workshops, inns, and chapels. The air wasn't filled with the smoke of coal-fired mills yet. Instead, you'd hear the constant clacking of hand looms from homes, the rumble of carts over uneven roads, and the voices of merchants haggling over cloth and yarn. Much of the textile production still took place under what's called the domestic system. Families would spin and weave cloth in their own homes or small workshops, supplying merchants who coordinated the whole process of production and distribution. This system gave Manchester a reputation for flexibility, innovation, and speed qualities that would later become crucial to its industrial dominance. Economically, 1750 was a pivotal year. Britain as a whole was experiencing a rising demand for textiles, both at home and across its expanding empire. Manchester was perfectly positioned to ride this wave. It served as a commercial hub where raw cotton, imported through ports like Liverpool, was transformed into finished goods destined for markets near and far. The merchants in Manchester were becoming increasingly wealthy and influential. They reinvested their profits into better tools, expanded their networks, and experimented with new methods of production. While they couldn't possibly foresee the full scale of what was coming, they were already pushing the limits of the traditional systems, creating a growing pressure for technological change. Socially, Manchester in 1750 was a place of subtle but growing tension. Traditional rural ways of life were colliding with emerging commercial realities. The gap between wealth and poverty began to widen in ways that were becoming more and more visible. Skilled artisans and successful merchants enjoyed a relative degree of comfort. But for unskilled laborers, apprentices, and the poor, life was precarious. They were vulnerable to every fluctuation in demand, to illness, and to rising food prices. Although the truly awful conditions of industrial-era Manchester were still in the future, the foundations of urban inequality were already being laid. Religion also played a central role in shaping community life. The Anglican Church was officially dominant, but there was a strong presence of nonconformist groups like Presbyterians, Baptists, and Quakers. Many of these individuals were closely tied to commerce, education, and reform-minded ideas. This religious diversity helped foster a culture of debate, literacy, and independent thinking, which would later support scientific inquiry and political activism. Politically, Manchester in 1750 had very limited formal power, despite its growing economic importance. It lacked direct representation in Parliament, a grievance shared by many rapidly expanding towns across Britain. This disconnect between economic significance and political voice would become a major issue in the decades ahead. It fueled demands for reform and contributed to Manchester's later reputation as a center of radical thought. Daily life for most people was shaped by work, family, and the local markets. The town was a hub for the surrounding villages and rural producers who brought their goods to be bought, sold, and redistributed. On market days, the town would transform into a crowded, noisy, and vibrant space where news traveled just as quickly as merchandise. Education was uneven, but it was improving. Grammar schools, private tutors, and dissenting academies provided instruction for those who could afford it. Literacy rates were on the rise, particularly among the middle classes. This helped spread the new ideas about science, economics, and society that were circulating throughout Enlightenment-era Britain. Infrastructure in Manchester in 1750 was still pretty rudimentary. The roads were often poorly maintained, making transportation slow and costly. Yet even here, signs of change were visible. Merchants and local leaders were discussing improvements to canals and turnpikes that would soon revolutionize the movement of raw materials and finished goods. These conversations signaled a growing awareness that prosperity depended not just on labor and skill, but on connectivity and investment. Culturally, Manchester was beginning to develop a distinct identity. It was one rooted less in aristocratic tradition and more in industry, enterprise, and self-made success. While it lacked the grandeur of older cities like London or York, it compensated with a raw energy, ambition, and a willingness to experiment. By the end of 1750, Manchester stood on the brink of transformation. It was still recognizable as a market town, but it was already straining against the limits of its older economic and social structures. Within a single generation, the inventions, investments, and pressures that were quietly gathering would erupt into the Industrial Revolution. This would reshape Manchester into the first modern industrial city, and in doing so, alter the course of human history. Looking back, the year 1750 matters because it captures Manchester just before everything changed. It was a moment when the future was not yet inevitable, but was being built day by day by merchants, workers, families, and thinkers who could not have known the scale of what they were starting. Through this lens, Manchester's story becomes more than just a local history. It becomes a universal one about how small shifts in technology, trade, and ambition can transform the entire world. And if there's another city, another year, or another historical turning point you'd like to explore, let me know in the comments. History is richest when we return to those moments just before change becomes unstoppable, and I'd love to keep that journey going with you. Thanks for watching.